still see that cemetery there. That is the village of Lachoway. Over here on this side here, this mountain here is known as Febuary. Febuary means rising up or sticking up. The story has to do with the flood story. We had our own flood story here. So when the flood waters had happened, this mountain was sticking up out of the water. It's one of the few mountains throughout our territory that was sticking up. It took a new meaning back in the 1920s, 1927 or so, when Sumaz Lake was drained. There's Ray Silver, one of our elders from Samath, talks about how after the lake was drained, up to 10 years after, in the mud you could still find live sturgeon in the old fields where they had drained the water out. Okay, so they had their heads sticking up out of the mud, and so that's why they called that Febuary as well. So it took a new meaning from the flood story, and then it became took that new meaning of the sturgeon with their heads sticking out of the mud. Okay, so we have the Sumaz River over here. Also the Chilliwack River starts up there. It's the Chilliwack River. It comes to the river, comes through the Better Canal, and then it joins into the Sumaz River. Okay, it's one of the only rivers that I know of in North America that has 3 different names as it makes its way to the river. Okay, so with the Sumaz River, we have all of the connections that the Samath people have through that area, all those waterways that come through this way, and then of course all the Chilliwack people, their river makes its way, comes through the canal and enters into the river here as well. Okay, then we have all the different types of waterways over here as well. McGilvery Slough, the mouth of McGilvery Slough, there was an old village site situated there. Just on both sides of the Sumaz River, where the Sumaz River enters into at the confluence of the Better Canal and Sumaz River, there's another old village site that was situated there as well. And also on this side of the mountain, there's a cemetery situated right on the hillside there as well. Now when we look at the area for resources, the important area down here, this whole stretch, is important for fishing all the way from over there, all the way down right to a place called Liamfatel. Liamfatel is an old fishing area, old fishing camp for the people from Samath. And all along this area, like right in front here, there's important fishing areas right here. That's a area there. That's where some of the people fish. There's also 2 large eddies below that where many people from Samath, from the and also from Chilliwack, they all fish in that one area. Okay, there's two big bays, and then once you get down to the mouth of the Sumaz River, and that whole stretch down there is an important fishing area for the people from Samath. And also the Ulican, in our language we call it the Swiwa, the Ulican. Although the numbers are really low now, this is an important area in the past where we used to catch our Ulican. The Ulican used to go all the way up to Hope. Now they barely make their way up to around Maple. So it's an important fishing area down here. And also when I talked about the point I wanted to make about the Shochuyam stories, in our Shochuyam there are 2 rivers. Two rivers that were transformed by Chachals, and those 2 rivers are the Swallow, the main river that goes right through the heart of our territory, all the way from north of Yale all the way down to the mouth of the river, and then also the Chilliwack River. The Chilliwack River was also made by Chachals. So those are the only 2 rivers that I know of in the territory that Chachals had made, and they run behind us here, and then they come out over here as well. So those are important areas or those rivers are important to us because of the salmon and because the fact that they were transformed. It's something that we have to take care of. Okay, I think that's all I can talk about right now. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much for sharing all of that with us. It's really important, I suppose, to remember that this area is not just an industrial site, and I think it's important to remember, based on all of the history and the current uses that it has, not just for humans but also for our other the salmon and the fish in the heart of the Fraser. This part of the Fraser is slowly starting to become industrialized, and in terms of our recreational fishing economy, in terms of the local economy, it's something that the people of Chilliwack and the people of the Lower Fraser need to know. So that's what they want to see happen in the heart of the Fraser. Thank you. And last but not least, we've got Glenn, who will be speaking a little bit about the Hazardous facility. So, thank you.
I'll try and shoot just the wind. First thing I want to say is I want to acknowledge that we're standing in solo territory, and it's a privilege to be here. I think Paul had it right when he wrote the first article about this. It's all about the location. This location is a really interesting one. The province singled it out in order to honor Bert Brink. The Bert Brink Wildlife Management Area is right there. He's a famous, probably BC's most famous environmentalist, known for starting parks and many other things. And they chose this area to honor him. And the Salo were very pleased when that happened, and as well as I was. This plant here is in the wrong location for many, many different reasons. Probably one of the biggest one is the risk of floods. The flood risk here is much higher than people are currently realizing. You can see they've spent millions of dollars raising it up because this property would naturally flood. There's a telecommunications device on top of that building so that the pumping system can discharge water very quickly because it's apt to flood at a very fast rate. We have to expect a 500-year level flood where it used to be the 100-year level floods. Because of global warming, the flood level, the flood risk has risen dramatically. And I'm not saying that as an environmentalist, I'm not saying that as an alarmist. It's not even David Suzuki isn't saying this. The person who's saying that the 100-year level is now a 500-year level is a BC Liberal MLA, Colin Hanson, who's the president of the Fraser Basin Council. He is saying that most of the flood protection we have in BC is inadequate because of the threat of global warming, and he's actively working on a project to increase the protection. It makes this site particularly vulnerable as it fills up with water. Shoves it way out there, very close to the river, much closer than we're standing now. And in fact, Rod told me his son, who's got a good arm, he plays ball, he can probably hit the river from this location. But the river's actually closer than you realize. During times of a freshet, you can see the reason we're on a berm is because the water comes right here. It's already starting to happen. The water is right here. I could hit the water with a rock. And you have to understand how dangerous mercury is, because this is all about mercury. FBRD is so concerned about mercury that a plant way over in Burnaby, a few bulbs that might get into that plant will send little bits of mercury all the way here. They're so worried about it, they don't trust MOE. They've spent $50,000 of taxpayers' money trying to convince Metro Vancouver that mercury and waste recycling is not a 21st century solution. Well, mercury light bulbs are not a 21st century product. They shouldn't be made. This plant is allowing those things to stay in the market. They shouldn't be there. And if the city of Chilliwack is worried about small amounts of mercury, they should worry about the small amounts of mercury that will be emitted from this plant. Because Environment Canada is already saying that in Ontario and in Alberta, the Venus plants are emitting mercury, and those amounts are rising. 10 years ago, the plant in Ontario was emitting 50 grams of mercury. Now it's up to 650 grams. You might think 650 grams isn't a big deal. Well, if that was 650 grams of cocaine, they would be put in jail, because cocaine is a dangerous substance. Well, I'm telling you that mercury is even more dangerous than cocaine is. This should not be legal. This is in the wrong location. And the really scary part of this whole thing isn't even this plant. It started with this plant, a meat rendering site. Luckily, they haven't built it because of economic reasons, but it's an M6. It has M6 zoning. And because of that, they use that as an excuse in the court case to say this should be allowed because you've already got an M6. Why not have another one? That's their argument. And we know if they build this plant, there will be more. They're only using approximately 10% of this land. There will be 5, 6, or 7 more plants, and they will be allowed to do things like process mercury and deal with PCBs legally, because once you've said okay to one site, you cannot say no to another. So we're not stopping one plant, we're stopping possibly 6. This is the new waste-based economy that Chilliwack is putting going to go in BC, they're going to come right here. This will be the prime location for waste-based processing. And we say no, it's way too close to the river. Like Mark said, there's no threshold to stop it. If there's an accident, there's no chance it's going to happen way too fast. And Sharon Gates is dead wrong when she says there's no difference